where could we possibly start? But more so, I would think from the financial standpoint. You know, I'm of the mind, and this is just my opinion, even if some people necessarily share it or not share it, but I really do think that Governor DeSantis is a shoo-in for re-election. I could be wrong. I'd like to be wrong. I haven't had a Democratic governor in the state in over 2 decades.
You've never had one, to be fair.
Well, no, I haven't.
Exactly.
And I don't think that's changing now, but that doesn't mean that it can't change. However, when you have the incumbent advantage, you are able to do things that
like
make
this.
You look really, really good, which is,
oh yeah,
DeSantis is doing a very smart campaign tactic, which is he is giving bonuses to first responders, and not just a little bit, $1,000. And that's a nice chunk of money, especially for first responders. And there's quite a few of them in this state. This is definitely a working class state overall. No two ways about it. Even though it's a red state, it's definitely a working class state. And by doing something like this, it really looks good to the working class voter, the independent voter. And if that's not enough, he adds a nice little caveat piece of red meat for the base, which is, you talk about defund the police, we are going to fund the police.
Now, for when you say first responders, obviously you're talking about other people besides police.
Absolutely.
So, yay for everybody that's included in that. You probably have like your, firefighters, your EMTs and, paramedics, whatever. So that's yay. But to me, this really screams of a big smoochy smooch to the police union.
Absolutely. And they are a very powerful union, as are a lot of unions.
And we'll get on that in a second with this book thing, but let's save that to the end, because I can do, police union.
We are, as Jen likes to say, we are very pro-labor. We are not necessarily pro-union. When it comes to unions, the only type of unions that should get support are ones that allow their rank and file to vote. If you do not allow your rank and file to vote, then I don't really care what you're fighting for. You are not really a union because you are not collectively bargaining on behalf of the workers. What you are doing is giving them benefits that keep them in line, so that way management or your corporate board of that union. Yes, there is a corporate influence within unions in this country. Look no further, as I always say, always look back to the 2016 primary between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Anytime the rank and file were allowed to vote on behalf of who they would want to endorse, Bernie won the endorsement every single time. Every time the board made the decision arbitrarily over the rank and file, Hillary Clinton got the endorsement. So as far as I'm concerned, that more or less is what determines whether a union is doing right or doing wrong. Now, when it comes to the police union, that's a little bit different.
It's completely different.
They are very much a GOP union. There's no question about it.
I don't even care about the partisan thing.
Not necessarily, but I think in this case, was there necessarily a reason for DeSantis to make this statement? Not really, but DeSantis is He's very slick.
No, he's seizing every opportunity because he's looking at the presidency. And so, yay.
Hey, listen.
And at a minimum, re-election.
I do think that he is, ultimately going to have that in his back pocket. And the closer he gets to election, especially if he thinks that his position may be threatened in any way. But now that we know that Anna Eskamani is not going to be running for governor, whoever he's going to be going up against is going to be a political moderate. So it's really not going to be difficult for DeSantis to do what he needs to do.
He's going to win.
And that's why I unfortunately, even if Val Demings ultimately does decide to run for governor, even if Nikki Fried decides to run for governor, there's too many variables that are working in DeSantis's corner. Again, you cannot look at this from the Democratic perspective. You have to look at it from the independent voter perspective, because the independent voter always decides the general election. So you have to say, well, is this what's going to make or break it or not? DeSantis
These kinds of things are looking really good.
Absolute 100%.
So,
but what is not looking really good, which is not going to get anywhere near the attention that it should get.
Are COVID?
We are now seeing a massive spike in the new COVID variant in our state. And where else would it possibly happen other than Florida?
Well, I mean, people, and here's the thing.
I thought we were back to normal.
Well, actually, we are. There just happens to also be COVID running rampant, but everything is back to normal. It's easy to say that, oh, it's Florida. Yeah, because that's where people go for spring break. They come here to go to the beach. If everybody was like flocking to, I don't know, where would somebody else be flocking to? Iowa this time of year, then maybe they would be the center of the crisis.
I don't really know why people are not flocking to Florida at this time of year. This happens to be the one time of year where people are trying to get out of the state.
Well, yes, but that's recent. That's only recently. Everybody was just here for spring break.
Well, that is ultimately the biggest reason why the COVID variant was spreading,
is
because of all the spread. Again, one of the biggest problems that we do have in the state of Florida is the fact that we are a very transient state and we do not have a sense of community, especially down here. Now, ironically, in a lot of the Republican parts of the state, the conservative parts of the state, there is much more community because they're multi-generational people that have been living here. But in particular, the three South Corner counties of the state, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach. There is a very big transient population.
Yeah, it's not.
Here.
There's no like hometown. It's not like that.
Doesn't
here.
feel like that.
No, it's not.
It's kind of like with
a resort.
It's kind of like with the sports teams. Like if you've ever gone to a Miami Heat game against the New York Knicks, it's like 60-70% of the arena is rooting for the Knicks.
Yeah, we don't have that. And the other thing about Florida, and I've said this before, which makes it's similar. Also, Texas has this, is we're very county run.
Which is actually not a bad thing.
No, I actually like it. So, for example, in Florida, our governor could say one thing, and that might not at all be what's going on in the county in which somebody is living. What's going on up in Jacksonville is not what's going on down here.
That's
what's
correct.
going on, exactly. So it's, it's not like California, where it's probably a lot more consistent throughout their entire state how things are being done. Florida it's kind of like the Wild West. I think that just southern states tend to have more of a county basis for their,
which is again that whole concept of it's kind of leaning into that whole idea of states' rights. And the truth of the matter is, states' rights overall is not a bad concept. It just so happens that the things that ultimately end up getting featured when it comes to states' rights are the worst versions of it. When it comes to things like segregation and fair housing initiatives, that's when the things like states' rights always comes to the forefront, and it's always to the detriment of the people who need the most help.
Okay, so moving on.
Since we are talking about the detriment of what can happen in these local communities.
You had wanted this one. Okay, that I just thought was kind of, I don't know.
No, I actually think we should talk about
okay, but then board. Well, then we can.
Okay, so you want to, well, yeah.
Because I have a whole, thing about that. So that's why I just do those.
No, I think we should come back to that. I do.
Okay.
I think it'd be better because that's more humor and that's less.
Okay, so
it's more of a Florida type of service.
Yeah, well, this is kind of like that too. So we're having a censorship situation here, and as you can see over here, we have HuffPost.
Growing up, were there any particular books that you can remember that they tried to ban from schools or that they didn't really want to see?
I remember when it started being an issue for Huck Finn. Because of the N-word. Because of the N-word, right. That was the thing.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, this is bothersome because it's very current. So you see HuffPost there, Florida school halts use of book about a black boy's killing by police. Okay, so I'm like, all right, well, that's interesting that it made the HuffPost. So then I, of course, investigate this further. Okay, so the book is called Ghost Boys. And the book is told from the perspective of a 12-year-old boy who was killed by the police. That's why it's called Ghost Boys.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this was actually a book that has been used in other places. This was not a required book. This was they call it like an ancillary or a extracurricular book. And it was being used in Coral Springs in a 5th grade classroom. So this woman here, Lori Alhadeff, who is a Broward County school board member, she finds this book to be inappropriate. What's so interesting about that is that it's exactly in line with the quote from the local police union. Now, why they don't like it, okay? This is what's really interesting. So the difference in headlines, just for people to understand. So the first headline I saw was this national one. It says, Florida school halts use of book about black boys killing by police.
Right.
Right. But when you look at the local headline that was in our local news, it just says Broward County school halts use of book about a black boy's killing. There's no by police. which I just think, okay, that's kind of interesting right there. But I would like to point out that this book has been rated appropriate for 5th grade students by Common Sense Media. And I mean, anyone who knows me knows I am like vehemently against censorship. And this is exactly the kind of stuff that slips through the cracks, because there's no national big thing about this particular book. It's not like, you know, Catcher in the Rye or Huck Finn, where it's this thing where people are going to fight. Nobody's going to come out and stand up and whatever because they don't care. But the principle that they are trying to ban a book that specifically talks about black boys being killed by police, that's content-based censorship. That's all it is. It's content-based censorship.
The fact that you are omitting the word police from the headline.
Well,
exactly. And this, of course, is in the Sun Sentinel. So it's
that's not the Sun Sentinel. No, it's not the Sun Sentinel. It's like our local TV. It's like 6 or 4. It's one of the local stations.
Okay.
But the Sun Sentinel might have had it the same though. I can't print Sun Sentinel because I don't want to pay. I refuse to pay for
I don't know. You know, the fact that they have these like paywall things that they now put up there,
I don't get the Sun Sentinel. But so it really bothers me. I can't stand censorship. The fact that this is just coincidentally comes that they've taken it off because, and I'm going to quote here, hold on a second, because this is an important thing. The director of the local Fraternal Order of Police, Paul Kempinski, asked Broward County School Board members in a letter to stop using the book. He wrote he was upset by the friendship between the daughter and the boy, saying he ultimately convinces her that her father shot and killed him because her police officer father is a liar and a racist. Now, I sincerely doubt that that's how the book puts it. But anyway, that's how this gentleman from the Fraternal Order of Police thinks of it. So kudos to you, Paul, for having contributing to fascism in our little county. And I would highly recommend anybody go out and purchase Ghost Boys.
I think when you try to suppress something, they ultimately has the boomerang effect and not exactly of the intent, or the Barbara Streisand
effect. It does with me, because if you're going to tell me that I'm not supposed to read something, I'm not just going to read it. I'm going to buy copies for everybody.
Well, I think it will have the opposite effect.
Good.
And again, why don't they want this to be told? You know,
she thinks it's inappropriate. It can be upsetting. Yeah. Think about how upsetting it is for the kids who are getting shot at. It's very upsetting.
Well, what is going to be very interesting is
Lori.
We have
Lori in the suburbs.
We have a very special bootlicker of the week this week. It's going to be controversial to say the least, but that
don't give it away.
No, but that particular person has an issue with qualified immunity or eliminating it. But you'll be very surprised, or maybe not surprised.
I know I wasn't.
No, probably not. But again, what we do want to finish up with before we bring Sheila into the studio is we had a couple of Florida moments, and of course we could do an entire show.
There have been shows.
All of the wonderful things that Florida comes up with. So
only in Florida, there are YouTube videos that have these.
I'll talk about this one, but you talk about this one because I wasn't even aware of this. Florida man wanted for stealing trove of Leonard Skinner memorabilia.
I know. I just found that really amusing, and I just looked at him, and I don't know. I just felt the need to just put that up there. I just find that so amusing, and of course, it's in the New York Post because we're very popular in New York.
Oh, that's true.
They love us. Well, I love to point out the ridiculous Florida stories that are always in the Post. That's more what that is. I love their homage to our ridiculousness, and they always point it out so well. And so that's really more what that is. But I just think, that he's wanted for, and quite honestly, shame on him for stealing a trove of Leonard Skinner memorabilia.
Well, what was he going to do? Flee to Alabama or something?
I don't know, but it's not right. No. And this guy is just one of those, this next one is one of those guys that gets on like world's dumbest criminals.
Well, we certainly have a propensity of having the type of criminals that really don't know what they're doing. But the idea that a Florida robber used planted iPhone to track victims' movements. I mean, this is like
just say, come and get me.
What does the public defender say when he gets in front of the judge?
Honestly, as somebody like that, I think when you have a client like that, you just really have to work with their limitations.
We're just going to have to plead down, okay?
You're going to work with these serious limitations because there are certain people that just cannot help themselves.
No,
I mean, that's just really pathetic. If you're going to steal things, don't leave your tracking device. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.